This is Jack, about to play some Blood and Truth. But for now, you guys are watching Viewer Takeover, hosted by Bryan Paul.
Today a legend is born, ready for vengeance rather than war, ready for anything, ready.
This is Viewer Takeover, where we film every Monday night, and then we bring it to YouTube every Tuesday. I don't know, whenever I get around to it. Tuesday sometime or another. I got a lot of stuff going on this Tuesday. I got an interview I got to conduct early in the morning. I got reviews going up, and of course this video. And then I'm playing another game for review. So holy crap, and there's a lot of stuff going on this week. Who the heck knows when this show's going to go live? With me this week, as always, Dave from Dave Station VR. And
hello, everyone.
In the middle, I figured the wave was just like, sorry, my mouth was full of burrito. I didn't know.
I wish it was. Jeez,
that would be great.
Chimichanga.
Chimichanga
Master.
And then this guy here in the middle is AJ from PSVR Underground.
Hello. I'm surprised I managed to remember to come here after the amount of time I've been stuck in No Man's Sky because I can't stop playing it.
Did you get your little ship yet?
Oh man, yeah.
Is it adorable?
Oh, it's like, and the fact that it's alive and like I'm such an animal lover, like I have like this emotional connection to my ship now. Like I'm never gonna let anything hurt you.
Can you pet it? Can you pet the ship?
Oh, yeah.
Can you pet the ship?
Yeah, I pet the ship in my video.
Does
like,
it pet?
All right.
No, it doesn't react or anything, but
that's sad. Maybe in a future.
Maybe they'll update that. Yeah.
But it still didn't stop me from being like my baby.
Okay, I pet my Jeep.
Yeah,
it responds
a lot like that.
It responds by pieces of the Jeep falling off, like just big pieces of rust and stuff
cracking away.
I believe it.
Right. Thank you so much, Jack. I appreciate getting me back and forth all the time. All right, guys, let's get into the show right now. Guys, the first person we want to thank. We thank a lot of people on the show, but the first person we want to thank is the guy who sent us that amazing Viewer Takeover introduction, Game Cats Market. Wow.
Game Cats Market. Yeah, that was awesome with the Blood and Truth. There's no better intro that you can do. Almost, maybe not many better intros you can do than with Blood and Truth. Like, in my opinion, probably besides No Man's Sky, the best game that came out last year. Just phenomenal. And hits the DJ booth right away, which was in the last update that they did with the rhythm game section. And then they just added the DJ booth where you could just mess around. So good. So much fun. I can't wait to put some friends into that. And I know they would have a blast with that kind of thing for sure. Great intro.
So that over Electronauts?
Yes, all day.
No.
For me, yeah.
Get the hell out of here.
No, that thing's got fireworks. It's got
care.
flames that shoot up like Rammstein.
Electronauts is way better.
So thank you, Game Cats
what are you
Market, for
talking
that
about?
awesome introduction. But remember, we want as many submissions for Viewer Takeover introductions as we can, so you don't have to go all crazy and complicated and edit the crap out of them like Game Cats Market did. All you have to do is take your phone, we want to see your face, and then say, "Hi, my name's Bryan Paul. I'm a Game Cat. Welcome to Viewer Takeover." You can use my name or your name. It doesn't really matter at this point. Just landscape style, man. So, it fits in the YouTube window, nice and fat like. Without Parole at gmail.com. But of course, Game Cats Market isn't the only person we want to thank. We also want to thank these people down here, these people who went to patreon.com/withoutparole They're the ones giving us $1 or more every single month. In conjunction with this, I am selling my video game collection, like literally a game at a time. It's painstaking and heart-wrenching. It's awful, soul-crushing. But remember, if you want to, the link is in the description to my eBay store. That is another way you can help support the channel. Buy pieces of my life, one at a time.
Yeah, I got to get in on that and rip out some of your heart slowly.
Yeah, you gotta get back to me about those games I'm trying to buy.
We'll get there. So, the Wii is like so distant right now. I'm like, not even
just
thinking
saying,
about
you can make quick cash right now.
Absolutely can do that.
Off you.
Maybe that dude from your live stream should go check out, see what Wii U games you have for sale.
Yeah, fuck that guy. So keep in mind that Dez stopped by the channel, and he did that episode of Why We Love with me yesterday, Doctor Who, Edge of Time. It was all good times hanging out with him. But we also did a Litterbox episode. Litterbox, of course, are the times that me and usually Jeremy, but this time Dez, just hang out and shoot the shit for like 10, 20 minutes. It's about whatever is happening in our lives. And those are exclusive to Patreon. So literally $1 a month gets you a bonus episode almost every single week. Gives you a reason to contribute to the channel. Plus, you get your name on that little Patreon scroll down there. That's where all the coolest cats hang out. That's my Patreon pitch for the week. People are like, how come you don't talk about your Patreon? I was like, have you ever seen Viewer Takeover? I fucking rant about it for an hour. And then people go, why do you want to just get to the fucking show? It starts at 12 minutes. Okay, whatever. All right. Moving on.
That's not the only people we want to thank either, Brian.
That is correct.
We would like to thank those that follow Beauty That Decays lead after making the mistake, a typo that led to the epic name Game Cat instead of Gamecast. Is that the right story? Is that
Absolutely
not
not
the
how
right
it went
I
down.
think
But you know
that's
what?
wrong.
But that's great though.
I thought it
Let's
was
go
a
with that
typo.
Now it's canon. It's canon.
Yeah.
This is the alternate history of Without Parole.
God canon.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe what goes on in here, nobody ever knows.
AJ, you also
not
won
me.
the Civil War. I'm not.
But yeah, we have 3 new Game Cats I'd like to welcome to the Game Cat Den. First of all, it's going to be Meow Meow, the underground station questing gamer cat. Meow.
That's a whole lot of stuff going
It's
on.
a lot in there. Yeah.
Yeah, really crammed a lot.
So, wait, so Meow Meow. I think Meow Meow supports both of us on Patreon. The Underground, obviously,
thank you
shout
so
out to
much.
Dave. Underground, obviously, shout out to AJ. Station, shout out to Dave. Questing,
I think they just have a quest and they
Yeah,
like
they just
quests,
like the quest.
probably.
I don't know.
Might
Who
be.
else do we have, AJ?
We have Mobius 317, the Crispy Game Cat.
The Crispy Game Cat.
Crispy. Quite crispy.
I just assumed it was his initials, and I didn't even like read it out loud. But it's like Crispy Game Cat. I was like, oh, nothing better than fried.
I love this name because it's a shout out to Ace Combat, Mobius, and that's actually who you play as in the VR missions. And yeah, just character. I think it was from like 3 or 4. God damn it, now I can't remember. But
I was just thinking of the
maybe
Mobius
it's a-
strip that they show in like 2,000 different movies about time travel.
Oh, but yeah, maybe. But yeah, Ace Combat 7, awesome. It's also on sale, and the HOTUS is on sale. I have a Twitter you can follow, but that's for
Yes.
another day.
That's where all the news is.
Finally,
All
we
AJ
have
cares about is this goddamn Twitter.
Young Wolf.
Shameless. Shameless.
Young Wolf,
Young Wolf.
Gamer 21, the Game Cat. Anytime anybody has Wolf in their name, I have to, channel my inner bloody roar and start talking like that because I just, I like to give props.
Thanks,
shout out.
Young Wolf Gamer 21. You just ruined the show. Now we're talking about Bloody Roar.
Brian loves it when you talk about Bloody Roar. It's his
It
favorite.
really does.
It's great. He's a wolf and he's a cat at the same time, which is great
Wolf cat.
because some people are dog people, and you can be a game cat and a dog person at the same time. You can be a wolf person and a dog person at the same time. You can be a furry. We don't give a fuck. We love you.
I always wondered what Red 13 was. I mean, I know he's like from Final Fantasy VII. I know he's like
Not a
he's like
wolf? Fox. Something.
He's like a wolf.
no, he's
wolf.
not a wolf. He looks like a wolf and a cat hybrid, but he has like a flaming tail. I want that so bad. I'm
going to look up what Red 13 was because I think he was.
He's really just an experiment kind of thing. They're like a native
Okay.
culture. Anyways, moving on. Don't want to get into too much non-VR talk.
Real quick. Remember, folks, if you don't know already, Game Cats are the loyal following of Without Parole. So if you change your name on YouTube to something the Game Cat, please let us know in the comments of any video. Just type hashtag Game Cat. So when I do a search, I find you nice and easy, and then we give you a shout out on next week's show. Dave, did you find an answer to that question? Because I'm patiently waiting.
Good luck. If I don't know,
There's no specific answer. It's they say he's
Trust me,
described
dude, I
as
would know
either
that.
like a lion or like a wolf.
Lion.
So I guess
I would
he's-
totally know the answer if there was one.
All right, 12
he is-
goddamn
Brian,
minutes.
what is the
It's-
point of this show?
No one knows.
Hold
AJ.
on, real quick. I have to tell you on the wiki, it says physical description of Red 13. His race is listed as Red 13's species.
He's one of a kind.
It's like he's a Yoda. He's a
You
fucking
know Red
Yoda.
13's real name?
No.
Hit me.
Nanaki.
I like
Yeah.
potato gnocchi.
He's part of like an Indian tribe. He's basically part of an Indian tribe, and his father was Sato. And yeah, I don't want. We could go all day
Professor
into this.
Hojo. I remember Professor Hojo. He was up to no good. All right, let's move
I
along.
can't believe I have
What's
to
the show
shove
about?
all of this
I
out.
really regret mentioning Red 13.
Leave it in. Leave it in.
All right, yeah. The real point of this show, of course, is to ask us questions, leave comments for us, and then put the hashtag Viewer Takeover in front or somewhere in your comment in the comments below, so that we can find it again, nice and easy, and use it on next week's show. Or even better, join our Discord server. Discord is where we all hang out all the time. It's like nonstop conversations. The link for the Discord is in the description. There's a Viewer Takeover channel in there. Just go in, leave your hashtag Viewer Takeover question. We will find it, and hopefully, if it's any good. Or even, I don't know, sometimes there's too many good questions, honestly. Like today we had to pick and choose. It was so hard to pick. Maybe we'll use it on next week's show.
Yes.
All right. First question comes to us from Billy Pod, the Game Cat, from PSVR this week. He writes, #viewer takeover. It's shocking how many PSVR developers trip over themselves on launch day, breaking all the cardinal sins that most PlayStation VR gamers hate seeing. Golem's control scheme at launch, Espire 1's insane blinders, and mandatory click turning in way too many games. If you could send an open letter to everyone developing a PSVR game right now, what would you warn them against doing?
Well,
This is such a loaded question, man.
I wasn't prepared for this. No, there are definitely a couple things that it really sucks to see when a game gets everything right. It looks very promising. And then, there's not a lot of room for mistakes for VR games to make because they're competing with they have a lot of competition and just little room for error. The biggest one, of course, from the get-go is obviously comfort settings being optional.
Yeah, what comfort settings piss you off the most? No. I'm joking because obviously there are people out there who require comfort settings, right? People need click turning, people need teleportation, people need blinders, people need everything, right?
Right.
So we want all those there to be optional. Right?
Optional is the key word.
And that's really it. Like we want all those things to be there. We just want the ability to turn them off for the people who aren't using them.
Yeah, click turning actually, and this includes like blinders and click turning, I think are the biggest offenders. And even in some cases, no turn buttons, which we saw recently. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but
You don't want to throw anything under the bus.
but there are definitely developers that don't add any turning at all, and they're just like, nah, it'll be fine. Right. But yeah, blinders are the biggest offender for sure, and then I'd say click turning. Because that actually gives me a headache, but sometimes they work as well. But I will say, for streamers and stuff like us too, or reviewers stuff that show gameplay on the screen, click turning looks awful on the screen.
Yeah, the only exception there is like sometimes a game will have smooth turning that's so bad,
right.
that you want to use the click turning, and that's a failure in itself. The smooth turning should be what you expect out of smooth turning. Like LA Noire is a good example of like, you don't want to use that smooth turning, even though it's a good game otherwise. Like that was a big oversight as far as how they developed that.
Desmond just talked about Doctor Who, The Edge of Time, and at launch that had the slowest smooth turning of all time. Like you could ramp it up all the way, and it was still like, woo, and like, and I'm not prone to motion sickness, but man, like that'll make anybody sick. I'm like, just turn, damn it. And so
if it feels like you're operating like a security camera instead of a person, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, and luckily they fixed it. But my review is still there. My initial day one launch review is still there. Going, oh man, I hope they fix the smooth turning. And that sucks, man. You don't want, I would hate for a developer to lose out on sales because they patched the game later on and fixed the problems. That's a little harder to get out there. Like breaking news reports, sure. Why we love episodes, sure. But I mean, nothing takes the place of just redoing an entire review, which no one has the time to do. Unfortunately, we got to stay on top of all these new games coming out.
The deceleration and of the smooth turning is awful. It's very simple. You just have smooth turning, and then you can, if you at most, put a sensitivity on it. If you're afraid of that, let people control how fast or slow that they want the smooth turning. I always put it to fast every single time. But the reason we wanted to mention this one is because people will straight up not buy your game just because it has force blinders and mandatory click turning.
Yep.
That is a deal breaker right out the gate.
Yeah, you go.
Well, and the flip side of it too is if somebody buys it not realizing that, they will go online and immediately start talking trash about your game and spreading bad news about what you've released. So I think, to kind of piggyback on that, instead of what developers shouldn't do, what developers really need to do is come out there and talk to the community as they're developing a game. And we see this a lot on Reddit, but like bigger developers could be doing this too, just saying, hey guys, like, what do you think needs to be in this? What have we missed? Because a lot of times that can, first of all, it gets the community excited about your game because they can tell that you're listening to feedback and you know what people want. But then also you can get out of your little, echo chamber and see what other developers are doing. I feel like a lot of developers build stuff in a bubble and they think, oh, well, we decided on our team what works.
Like they have the answer.
Yeah, and so if you know from the beginning that you don't know, and people have to help you figure out what people want, then I think you're going to end up a lot better off in the end. So it's not like I expect like Gearbox to come through and be like, "Hey guys, how should we make Borderlands 2?" But honestly, that sort of thing would go a long way. Like just
They added
listening
aim
to
support.
people and hearing what they want. I think is the main thing that developers need to make sure they do.
Yeah.
All right. So the second thing, and this is kind of a tricky one because this one is there's not really like an easy way to judge this or gauge this, but the pricing of the game is the number two deal breaker for a lot of people. We see a lot of amazing games, but the pricing for the amount of content usually throws people off. And if there's one thing I've learned is that, people just wait for sales on everything, on a lot of things. But if you get the price right out the gate, I've always told developers, a couple key developers as well, where I was like, do you want to sell? Is it more important to sell more at less or less copies for more? Because usually if you have a, hour-long game or something and try to charge like, $40-$50 for it, people aren't going to buy that. It's been a little bit better lately. It is like we've seen a couple games, but yeah. And not only does it come to just getting the price right, but having the prices fixed on the store. Like, I don't know, like what this discrepancy between the North America store and then the European store and the Australian store. Why is there such a big discrepancy in the pricing?
It's been a huge issue recently for a lot of games.
Yes. I mean, outrageous, like 2-3 times the price that it would be in North America. And that's a killer too.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of, we hear from a lot of developers, saying, oh, we're a small dev team and like that's why our game is only a couple hours long or this or that or whatever. But it's like that's fine. I love small games. I like consuming lots of games. I'd almost rather consume 5 games a week than
sure.
one every other week or something like that. And because I love jumping into all those different worlds and seeing what all the gameplay mechanics are like. Blah blah blah. I like diversity and variety. But man, it's like not every indie game is worth $20. Hell, not every indie game is worth $10, right? It's like you got to explore that pricing structure. Star Bear Taxi came out, and I think it was what, $6?
It was $5.
So $4.99, right? So
yeah,
it was, and I think if they even tried to charge like $12 for that, I would have been like, "What are you guys doing?" It's a fun little game, but man,
I thought it was great for $5. I was like, "This is so worth recommending. You guys should pick this up."
Yeah.
Now, if one person buys your $20 game that should be a $5 game, they're going to go around telling people, "Hey, you got to wait for a sale until this is like super, super, super on sale."
Right.
And people will have forgotten at that point, or they won't care anymore. And so like that initial thing, you want to sell more, I think, than selling less for more money, because then people can say, "Hey, I got this. It's pretty decent. You should check it out." Whereas the flip side, people are just telling each other not to buy it.
Yeah, well, not even that. I mean, it doesn't even take word of mouth to see that effect. Luckily we saw with like Trucker VR with Vertigo Home, they actually had some success by lowering the price. I mean, this was a game where I love the game, but it is a very simple, very small game. Even though it's replayable, it's not like, it's not like a blow you away kind of game.
It's not a toy.
It's not a toy.
Those guys would have had way more success even at $5. Like they
did put it on sale almost immediately as well. But I can tell you the reason I think the difference between charging 20 for that and charging 12 is the amount of people. Like when I say you want to sell more for less, is because that I think is a significant like amount. It's not like if somebody sees that for $20, like nobody's paying for that.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
You really, it's just a way to compete. You want a competitive price, and you got to look at it as like, people pay $50 for this amazing experience at like, the theme park where they ride roller coasters, but they go and do that all day long. And that's like a big family event. And they could stay there all day. if people aren't gonna, if you were only allowed to go to the theme park for an hour and you pay $50, you think people would be doing that? No.
No, absolutely not. I think this kind of goes along with the current talk that we're having here, but I'd like to discuss mobile ports or ports of old PC VR games. Right? If you've got a 3-year-old game out there, or it's an Oculus Go or a mobile port, it's not an excuse to say, hey, here's the game ported over to PSVR, but you can't complain about any of the problems because it's a 3-year-old mobile port. And like, no, that's a problem. Like right off the bat, it's a problem that you're porting a mobile game over to PSVR because I guarantee you're not taking full advantage of the controls or any locomotion systems or anything like that. It's like, if you're going to do that, if you're going to take your old game or your mobile game, like, please make it take advantage of the hardware, like spruce the graphics up a little bit, see what you can do with the controllers. Too much stuff has, like, sometimes head tracking is amazing, like Resident Evil 7 has awesome head tracking, but sometimes, like Vigilante Ranger, the head tracking ruined the game because you're teleporting yourself on accident, because that's the way the game was designed for, like, whatever came out on originally. I think Go or something. It's like, no, well, that doesn't work here. We have 2 controllers in our hand, which, by the way, don't track correctly for some reason in that game. It's like, just take advantage of the hardware. And then, and I said this goes along with the conversation we were currently having, because they, for some reason, it suddenly seems acceptable to charge an extra $5 or an extra $10 for your game just because it's on PlayStation VR when you didn't even optimize it for that hardware. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it shouldn't.
Yeah. Eclipse.
No, I agree with that.
I give Eclipse Edge of Light, lots of praise, because they did touch up the graphics a little bit. They did incorporate DualShock 4 pretty well. But this brings us to the next one, controller options. Because that is something.
I had one to slide in there real quick.
Go ahead.
The one that I will give a pass to, as far as a mobile game being ported over, is virtual reality. I know not everybody likes that one, but I think it still works just as well in this format, and they didn't need to tweak it too much, and I don't know what it would have added. And I don't think they made it super expensive. So
I will tell you,
I like that one.
As far as VVR is concerned, I would really like turn buttons rather than just a 180 flip button that you have to, like, triple click the move button to make out.
Fair point.
So, I mean, I think they did a good job. I think it looks great in the headset, but
they certainly optimized the graphics.
It looks nice.
Yeah.
But as far as controller issues go, I think AJ is going to bring us right into that topic.
Yeah, I thought it was a good time. Number 3 is controller options. You guys had mentioned Borderlands. Borderlands actually launched with a great options between DualShock 4 and Move controllers. But then what does everybody always say? Aim controller. And I get it that sometimes the aim controller and stuff doesn't work. But I'm a firm believer that having the options, you got to think about how many people have PSVR. And then once you say how many people have PSVR and have Move controllers, that's less people. Then you got to say how many people have PSVR and then aim controller. That's even less people. At the very least, I really think you should always have one of those peripherals and then a DualShock 4 option. Eclipse Edge of Light, which I was just praising for having a DualShock, for having the touch up on the thing, it didn't have Move controllers. And when you're having these, when you have 2 hands in the game, it's so much more immersive to have two hands in the form of
half of that game was throwing the damn ball at things.
Right.
And it was like, how do I not have? It's like Robinson the Journey. How do I? It has a Move controller in the game.
Holding Move controller.
How do you not have Move support? Also, but kudos to White Elk who is bringing Covert to PSVR soon, and part of the reason of the delay was because they added moves. They're adding move support.
Exactly.
So I think they learned their lesson with not that they had a lesson to learn, but I think they probably heard some feedback from the community and they took advantage of that and changed for their next game. So we'll see what happens with that.
I think that's one thing I love about touring carts is the amount of different options you can play with. Like
an insane
everything.
Number of options.
Insane. A wheel and a Move controller. I mean, I think even if each option, which by the way, I don't really like the Move controllers in that game, trying to grab like a virtual steering wheel. but I'm very glad that it's there. I'm very, very glad it's there. Rush VR is another great example. If you go, and I feel like they've added some to Rush, but if you go into the options, there's like a million different like movement settings and stuff. But just I'm a firm believer that having more controller options, as many as you can get away with, and then just having the different options is the best idea moving forward. Dave, what's your thoughts on controller options?
I mean, it's always good to have more, obviously, if it makes sense. I think having DualShock doesn't make sense in everything, because there are some games I just literally can't imagine actually working with a DualShock. But if it's possible, it should be an option, just because a lot of people don't have Move controllers, a lot of people don't have aim controllers, and when you first get into VR, you want to have stuff that without spending an extra $100-$200, you can just dive into and play and feel immersed. So, I mean, ideally, something like a Static or an Astrobot is the best way to use a DualShock 4. But I think plenty of other games could at least offer it as an option, and it would be fine.
Cool. That actually brings me to my next point, which is the standard control options. Just a couple things to touch on this one. We oftentimes, I know we have these things that we use, and they don't have joysticks. So a lot of developers try to improvise their own certain way, and you end up with some buttons over here and some buttons over here. And it's like Polish Paul once said it in a really funny way and said that it's like operating, like driving a tractor, like having to focus on doing all these, pulling these levers, doing all this stuff at once. And I really love the way he put that. But the standard controls for any developer out there that doesn't know, what's really popular is what's like Skyrim and Shadow Legend, Killing Floor Incursion controls, Sirento controls, where you basically push the move button and you just point this in the way you want to walk, and then you use your other hand to do what other actions you can. The other thing
should be on the right controller, and your walk button should be on the left.
And the turn buttons need to be on the opposite of the walk button, because we can't walk and turn with the same controller. That's too many. The thumb doesn't split into three pieces, unfortunately. But that's just not how it was made, or most people. Right. But yeah, definitely. And also with that, lefty support is something to make sure you take into account as well, because believe it or not, there are a lot of left-handed players, and freaks like Niculo. I'm just kidding. I only joke because I have so many friends that are left-handed, and they're all weird.
I've only got one more thing to really add, I think, as far as this list is concerned, and that's we were talking about pricing in different regions, but man, it's like developers really have to figure out their launch situation, like simultaneous launch worldwide, or at least within the same week, man, because as easy as it is to create new accounts in different territories, like what a stupid way to have to like circumvent whatever the hell is happening behind the scenes. Like figure out your fucking launch situation so that it launches simultaneously in all regions. Like I guarantee you, if you've got a game coming, something's going to happen in the red tape that you're not aware of that's going to prevent you from launching in Australia, who still doesn't have Golem. Like, what is going? How do they not have Golem? Right, that's a big game.
Yeah,
I don't understand it.
There's just one more, that is listen to the community. Listen to community feedback. Like I said before, a lot of gamers out there will go out and buy your game just because you listen to them, and you will be rewarded. Don't listen to everything all the time, or you don't change everything all the time that you hear, but listen at the very least, and you will be rewarded for it. I promise you.
I won't promise you, because there's been a lot of games that should have been ridiculous successes on PlayStation VR. The developers doing all the right thing, and they did not succeed. So I can't promise you success, but at least you'll get our respect.
A better chance.
That means absolutely nothing to you when it comes down to finances, like financial stability. So I apologize. We got nothing for you. All right, who's taking the second question? Which, by the way, this is going to be an hour-long episode. This is crazy.
Yeah, I'll take it.
All
right, so we got Brawling KJG over at the Discord, and he says, #viewer takeover. as we get closer and closer to VR becoming mainstream, do you guys think that there would be a particular game that would be the one to get everybody on board? For example, GTA VR or Call of Duty VR, etc. Thoughts and opinions?
I mean, he definitely
All of
listed a
them.
couple of good ones already. I think Grand Theft Auto 5 is like the best-selling game of like all time at this point, right?
Yeah.
Certainly of the generation. I think certainly of last generation even. It's
Yeah.
maintained, very high ratings on the best-selling list for a very, very long time. I'm going to say we've already got one coming. I think Half-Life Alyx is probably going to do wonders. I know people have been wanting another Half-Life game, and unlike something like Skyrim VR, which everyone, for the most part, everyone played Skyrim at least once, twice. Some people like upwards of 5 or
Skyrim
6
is
times.
is responsible for a lot of this 5 million install base that we currently have. Yes, it did a lot of that.
But there's still a lot of people out there going, I already played Skyrim. I'm good.
Right.
Putting a big game in a huge series, right? I mean, Half-Life. I can't imagine anyone looking forward to a game more than something like Half-Life 3, right? And then when you announce Half-Life Alyx and say VR only, like that says something. That says, hey, not only are we a developer that are absolutely committed to making VR games, but it also says we have faith in this hardware and we trust that you're going to go buy the hardware to play our game. And that says a lot, especially coming from somebody like Valve, who people put a lot of faith in. I think once that launches, we're going to see a lot of things happening on the PC VR side of things, and I really do believe that they have made no declaration like it's going to be an exclusive. They have talked about it being, they wanted as many I'm stuttering, on as many platforms as they can possibly get it on, and so I definitely think we're going to see that on PlayStation 5, and that could make a lot of things change very quickly. That's like the one game I have in mind. Like that's the one that's going to do it.
That is definitely, I've definitely been able to see the impact on that. I mean, he, like you said, he pretty much nailed it with Grand Theft Auto 5. I think that would probably be the biggest game that you could possibly bring to VR that people would just be like, yes, I have to have that. Call of Duty is another great one.
Yeah.
Any just more AAA games. The more we get AAA games, I had briefly caught this video from IGN. I didn't get to finish it. It like popped up in my recommended, but they were talking about VR's situation, and something I really liked that they said. I was like, hey, these guys actually know what they're talking about. Was he mentioned this? The VR is kind of in this chicken and the egg situation where people want these huge AAA games, but then developers want a bigger install base. So it's like, which one's going to come first?
Right.
And that's kind of the what's going to be the tipping point, I think, is what they were talking about. But I want to go back and finish that conversation because I actually really liked what they were saying. But easy answer for me. I mean, those that they named, if my personal ones, Gran Turismo 7, if that ends up having full VR support, that's going to be huge. And Sony recently acquired, Insomniac Games, and I would love to see a Spider-Man game, like a full-fledged. That game, the flat screen game, sold over 13 million copies.
Nice.
I would love to see that come over to us in VR because that free experience was pretty badass. As janky and sloppy as it was awesome.
The problem for me with this question is that it kind of, so people who are waiting for that one big game like a GTA or an Assassin's Creed or something, they're not really interested in VR. They're just interested in seeing their favorite giant franchise in a different way. Mm-hmm. And so what I think to really get VR to latch on and to take over in a kind of, not take over, but like be prominent in a mainstream way is not just a game. As much as there are people who only play Call of Duty or only play GTA, maybe they'd get it and they'd spend 500 hours in the thing and they'd be like, this was a good purchase. I'm glad I bought this. But a lot of people, you get them in the door with something, but then if they're coming in expecting, oh, I want all my favorite franchises that are super AAA that I already know in VR, it's going to be a long time before that's there for them. So I feel like that almost creates like a second generation of people who are shitting on VR because they bought it for GTA and there's like, well, there's nothing else I can do with this thing because the only game I like is GTA. And so I don't know. I think there are games that will bring people in, and we've seen that already. I think No Man's Sky probably sold some headsets. I think Iron Man's going to sell headsets. But the real thing is the longevity of like, once those people buy one, are they just going to play that game and leave it on the shelf because they're only interested in big name titles, not in new technology? And I think that's the issue we're going to have to deal with, because a lot of people just don't want to think VR is cool, no matter what.
I definitely don't see that narrative as much as I used to. In fact, it was really refreshing to see, Xbox announce their specs today, and there was a lot of people happy about that. But then I did see a lot of people saying, you don't have, like, why aren't you supporting VR? This is perfectly capable of supporting VR, and it was really refreshing to see that finally. So I think when Phil Spencer said that, he might have actually kind of ignited a little bit of a spark there. Because now people know that, if we don't ask for VR, we're not going to get it. But really, the true answer to this question to me is really most likely going to come down to a brand new revolutionary IP for VR. That's a AAA game that has tons and tons of time you can put into it. I know this is a tall order, but that's what video games are about. Games that you could play for an entire year, 2 years, even more, and just have enough replayability that way and enough content. I think a new IP would be the way to get somebody to bring in the most new people.
Yeah, I think it's got to be from a AAA studio that people already trust and are excited about. Your Guerrilla Games, your Rockstars, your
I would say it doesn't necessarily
something
have
like
to
that.
be a AAA studio, because if you look at the impact that Beat Saber has had, I mean, that's not a AAA studio. And
that is such a unique story, and I don't think anybody's going to be able to replicate that again. They got in at the right time. They had a really uniquely positioned product that people just love to show off, and I think it will be hard for anybody else to capture that lightning in a bottle again.
Yeah, it's not. Even if it's a AAA company, it's not going to be easy, though.
Yeah, and I mean that wasn't because they had so much good marketing and they built such a deep AAA game. They just had people talking about it on the internet.
Mouth.
Yeah. And that's not usually how, system sellers are created, through word of mouth. I don't know. I think it's got to be something that's built from the ground up for VR. So like if you just take GTA 5 and you throw it in VR, you're going to have to do a lot of optimization to make it feel like it ought to be a VR native title. And so people will be like, well, this is cool, but also something's off about it. It doesn't feel right. So with Skyrim, like the amount of time you spend in menus for a VR game that are not designed for you to be in VR is kind of a pain in the ass. So I think whatever this needs to be has to be something that's like fresh, maybe not a brand new IP, but at least something that's not a port of an existing giant game into VR.
Right.
And our final question.
Thank you, Brawling. I will take this one. Oh, I love this question. Meow I was going to say Meow last Thursday, but that's just when he commented. Meow says #viewer takeover. What do you like more in a horror game? Effective jump scares like Rush of Blood, or an extremely fucked up story like Transference?
Yes.
I mean, the best way to do it is
such a Brian Paul answer.
Yeah.
You got to have both. But I think personally, I'm more on the Transference side of things. As much as I love Rush of Blood, to me, that's the kind of horror that sticks with me longer. Like, I've played a ton of horror games on VR that have effective jump scares, but I will never think about again. Transference, like, burrows into your brain a little bit because it is so uniquely fucked up and strange and unsettling. And for me, that goes a long way. I know when a game's trying to scare me if it just has something go pop, and it's like it takes a lot more effort and it's a lot more effective for me personally if somebody takes the time to make you feel constantly unsettled by everything rather than just like, oh, it's dark and something jumped at me. I think Resident Evil 7 does a really good job of combining both of those, because there are jump scares, but there's also an extremely fucked up story behind it too. So best case scenario, you get both, but that's rare.
I really do enjoy when games do the transference thing and give you that setting, that atmosphere, and make you uneasy the entire time. But I feel like if you don't get the jump scares in conjunction with that, I feel like it's a lot of build up for nothing.
Well, they still throw you a few. I mean, like I said, you got to have both. Like Transference does have, not to spoil anything, but the dog thing.
Yeah.
You know, the dog thing. There's a few jump scares in there.
Right.
You got to have,
Dude, the Walter test case.
sprinkle them in.
The shotgun in the Walter test case demo was amazing.
Oh yeah,
Right. That was better than anything in the actual game. But I know Jeremy and I went to see It Comes at Night. Right. It's supposed to be a scary movie, and we're sitting in the theater the whole time going, "You think anything's gonna happen?" And then it ended and nothing happened. I was like, "Holy shit! Like what a waste of a spooky environment and a cool setting and all this stuff." You know, you build this world, you build all this atmosphere, and you just start drenching it with the possibilities. And if you don't actually deliver on any of those possibilities, like I can't stand when people talk about jump scares that are earned or deserved. I'm like, you know what? Give them to me because they work and they scare me. I don't care if they're earned or deserved. I'm like, I will take every jump scare. Yeah, it's better if you get, saturated in that world first and then they throw the jump scare at you. Great. But man, I'm playing a scary game because I want to be scared. And I will absolutely take any undeserved jump scares you have to throw at me. Like, bring it on, man. Fucking scare me. It's supposed to be fun. And when people start analyzing scares, I was like, you have already missed the point. Like, get out of here.
Oh man, I mean, between these two, I love that I'm the actually kind of opposite spectrum of Dave here, and that I like jump scares because the tension stuff in Transference didn't really do it for me. I didn't find it scary. The one thing that did get me in that game was the jump scares that are in it, and that was like the most memorable thing. I thought the story was really cool, which is awesome. But also with Resident Evil 7, the jump scares were great, but it was, the scariest thing about that game for me, besides that little kid's room, was the dread of being like stalked by Jack, like the tension of him coming after you. But the thing that gets me,
I think that's a third kind of horror that wasn't mentioned in the question.
Right? There are
Because
definitely
there's a
some
lot
more
of games that are just in that kind of thing where it's like, it's not a jump scare, it's not a story based thing, but
just
you
knowing
know
something is
you're
coming
in existential danger and you
Right.
can't really help yourself. You just have to be sneaky and hide.
Yeah.
That is
like
probably,
Alien Isolation or something. Like
right.
Yeah.
That is probably one of my favorites. That which goes, I guess, is more of like survival horror. But I'll tell you what is the most effective for me personally is sound design, 3D audio and sound design. Something
Absolutely.
like Dread Halls that doesn't even look like, even near. It looks good, but it doesn't look near like Resident Evil 7. But that audio sound and just hearing all these noises, I mean, it just constantly made me stop and go, oh, what was that? Like, what was that? What was that noise?
Yeah.
And you hear all these things. Brian, when I was watching you live stream it, which I absolutely loved, you would walk up to the door and the door would just go knock, 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 knock. And you were like, oh, fuck this shit. I'm not opening this door. And there was nothing even behind the door, but it was just the way the sound design in Dread Halls is so good. Same with the Persistence, where you could hear like from like somewhere, and you could actually in the Persistence, the sound design is so good that you could tell exactly where it was coming from, like pinpoint spot where it was. And so just hearing that noise, not sure what it is, and hearing it come from that specific spot is just something that is a lot easier to do in VR with 3D audio, you being in that space, than you can on a flat screen. Flat screen, they still do a pretty good job of, when it's done right, of being able to tell. But in 3D, it's just like you have a full 360 around you. It could be anywhere. And the sound design gets me more than anything. Man, the Solus Project, oh my God. The sounds in that game are just terrifying. So eerie.
The sound design. I was just playing the Resident Evil 7 DLC. Nightmare DLC. Right?
Ooh, cool. AJ, you still need to play that. You keep putting it off.
Well,
get in there.
In that piece of DLC, you're in what it was like the morgue where the body bags are in the wall, right? So they put you in that part of the basement, and there's a machine that generates scrap metal, and you use the scrap metal. You have to keep the machine running. You have to get the scrap metal from there to craft guns and ammo and weapons and all that stuff. And it's like you have to do it very quickly. You have to keep the machines running. You have to keep killing the molded that come in. And I'll tell you, in Resident Evil 7 proper, the sound design is so good that when you're in the basement, you think that every creak and every sound is a molded coming after you. Like, what, where, what? But in this, it tackles sound design in a whole different way. Whereas like that machine that's creating scrap metal is so loud and it's like making this grinding sound that you're like scared because you're like, dude, you're attracting attention. Like, why is it so loud?
Right.
And it's keeping you from hearing the necessary sounds of the molded to know where they are. So it's like a completely different, really effective type of sound design that I don't know if I don't think I realized how much I loved it until just recently when I was spending more time with it. But that is great piece of DLC if you don't have
Sounds
it.
badass. Yeah. Does it make it like harder to hear what's going on around you too?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh man, that sounds awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, terrifying in VR. Like I put that headset on, and I was like, I'm not ready to play this right now. I'm like, I haven't even had my coffee. Like I forgot how scary this was.
I can't believe you still haven't played it yet, AJ.
Oh well, I will. Don't worry.
Okay. We're going to
I'll
remove
leave
your
that.
GameCat moniker until you've.
I've got
completed
my
it.
ship in No Man's Sky. Where's yours?
There
Hey,
is that.
fair enough, but I've already played Nightmare Mode a bunch of times. That like a year ago.
Yeah.
So
All right, guys. I think that does it for another episode of Viewer Takeover. It's the longest episode we've ever had. So let's.
Wow.
Hope you guys found it enjoyable.
yeesh.
It's good hanging out.
hope-
There's a part of me that really wants to start doing this live. We do Gamescast live every Thursday at 6 p.m. And I was like, we actually film this roughly the same time every week. So maybe if we get on a schedule, we could actually do 2 live shows a week. But we'll
I'd be okay with that.
so
I'd be okay with that.
let us know in the comments below what you think of that idea.
The only problem is this would end up being a 3-hour show or a
Yeah.
2-hour show because people would ask new questions.
That's a good point.
Right.
during the live stream,
take
and
it
I'd be
all
like,
back.
I want to answer that. I want to answer that right now.
I take it all back. We're not making this a live show.
I
Plus,
would totally just sit there and answer questions in the chat. Absolutely.
plus it'd be so much work to get all this stuff prepared ahead of time.
I'm down for it. You guys are like, AJ, shut up.
Remember, guys, support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/without parole.
Games.
For just $1 or more every single month to get your name on that Patreon. Scroll down below, which stopped scrolling like literally 30 minutes ago. It's so long ago. Also, make sure you subscribe to Dave at Dave Station VR. Subscribe to AJ at PlayStation VR Underground, or PSVR Underground as we like to call it. I think you guys probably already subscribed to Without Parole. So thanks for stopping by and watching Viewer Takeover. Change your name to GameCat, #GameCat in the comments below. Also send us a Viewer Takeover introduction. Remember, my name is Bryan Paul. I'm a GameCat. Welcome to Viewer Takeover. Wow. It's all we really need from you. Don't make it crazy. Don't go to town editing. Although, GameCat's market. Awesome intro, dude. Awesome.
Pretty good.
job.
Pretty goddamn good.
All right, let's get out of here. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, AJ. My name is Bryan, and we're out. Second. Just make sure everything's on the up and up here. And we're good.
What song am I playing?